Students, so for the video for today, we're going to go through a few examples of integer multiplication, and then one that kind of gets into integer division. So, I know it's hard to see, so I'm going to read out the problem. Itzel has 50 PBIS points at the start of the day. At lunchtime, she went to Miss Deliotis' classroom to buy goldfish with her PBIS points. Good decision. Goldfish cost 15 PBIS points from Miss Deliotis' store. Itzel bought 2 bags of goldfish for herself and then 1 bag for a friend. Write a multiplication equation to represent the change in the number of PBIS points Itzel had from the start of the day to the end of the day. So Itzel started with 50 PBIS points. So we're going to keep that in mind. But for this question, we're just thinking about the change. So she's buying 15, she's buying 3 bags of goldfish because she's buying 2 bags for herself and 1 for a friend. So I'm going to annotate that. 3 bags of goldfish. And then we have to think about how many PBIS points she's spending on the goldfish. So the goldfish each costs 15 PBIS points. So if they're costing 15 PBIS points, then we would say as an integer, what represents that costing 15 PBIS points is a negative 15, right? Negative 15 represents how much we're losing. Negative, losing 15. And then we're buying 3 bags of them. So if we're trying to figure out the change or how much it cost her in total, we have to do 3 times negative 15. Meaning we take away 15, take away another 15, and then take away a third 15. So we know that when we're multiplying a positive number and a negative number, we just multiply the absolute values. So we'll do 3 times 15. And then we're going to keep the negative sign. It ends up being negative. When we have 1 positive and 1 negative, and we multiply, we get a negative. So I can do that off to the side. If you don't know 3 times 15, remember the order doesn't matter with multiplication, so I'm going to write 15 times 3. Same thing as 3 times 15. 3 times 5 is 15, so I write a 5 here, carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 1, carry the 1, and I get 4. So 3 times 15 is 45. So then 3 times negative 15 is going to equal negative 45. And since this is a word problem, it's always good to have my units. So it's negative 45 PBIS points. If I wanted to, I could think about this on a number line, where just thinking about the change, thinking about 0 as our starting point, even though she doesn't start with 50, I'm going subtracting negative 15. Once that's taking 1, then I go another negative 15, that'll get me to negative 30, and then 1 more negative 15, and it gets to negative 45. So I'm moving left, or I'm subtracting, or I'm getting rid of, going in the negative direction, 15, 3 times. So I have 3 groups of negative 15, and I end up at negative 45. So I can represent 3 times negative 15 is negative 45 PBIS points. That represents the change. Then I have a second question. Second question is, how many PBIS points is Itzel left with? Write an addition equation that represents how many points Itzel is left with. So we might have just think about a subtraction. You might be inclined to do 50 minus 45, which would work. I'm going to write that down. 50 minus 45 is going to give us our answer. Itzel is left with 5 PBIS points, because you would probably think of it as we're starting with 50, and then we're like subtracting away 15, and then 15, and then 15. So we're subtracting away 45 points. Or, but this is asking to write it as an addition problem, we can do that by saying 50 plus negative 45. And that also is going to equal I want you to see both because remember, subtracting is the same thing as adding the negative. So subtracting positive 45 here was the same as adding negative 45. And with this idea of 50 as our starting point, and then our change is we're going negative 45, that one works more as an addition problem. Okay, so this is our word problem, where we get some integer multiplication when we have a positive enough times a negative, and then also we have a case where we're looking at addition and subtraction. As a general matter, you can, when you're talking about integer multiplication, you're only going to see word problems that are examples of a positive times the negative, because you can't really represent a negative times a negative in the world, because that would mean, if we think of multiplication as groups, it would mean you'd have a negative number of groups times a number that's negative, and that a negative number of groups doesn't make sense. Or just have to remember when we have the same sign that we're multiplying, so positive and positive, negative or negative, they're going to like cancel out, and we'll just get a positive. So negative 2 times negative 7, quickly, we have negative 2 times negative 7. What we can do, we can multiply the absolute values and do 2 times 7, which is 14. And then since we have a negative times a negative, our final answer is that positive 14. Then for number 2, just a quick reminder, putting this here mainly so we remember how to multiply in case you've forgotten when we have 2-digit numbers. This one is negative 21 times negative 42. We should know for sure that since we have a negative times a negative, our answer is going to be positive. So this has the same answer as whatever 21 times 42 is. So let's figure that out. We go 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Then, since we're moving to the tens position, the rule is to put a 0. Or maybe you learned to put like an X or a cross, but a 0 underneath the 2, under the ones position. Then we do 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. And when we add it together, we get 882. So that's our answer. It's the answer both for what 21 times 42 is and what negative 21 times negative 42 is. That's when they're the same sign, our answer ends up being positive. And then finally, thinking quickly about a division question, we have negative 4 divided by 2. I want to try to represent that so we can get the answer. So this is my number line. Negative 4 is this section, right from 0 to negative 4. So we're moving 4 in the left direction. And then if I'm dividing that by 2, that means I'm going to come in my section and split it into 2 equal parts. Split it right here, right in the middle, split it in half, 2 equal parts. And my 2 equal parts have a length of negative 2 each. This one's negative 2, right, because it's 2 units. The absolute value is 2 units, but we're in the negative direction. And then same thing here. We have another negative 2. So my answer here is negative 2. And that's the same, division and multiplication have the same rules. So when we have a positive and a negative that we're dividing, just like multiplying, the answer is going to be negative. And then the same will be true as well for if they're both negative, then the answer ends up being positive. Be sure to answer the questions that are attached to this, and thanks for listening.